Would you like to know what you need to have on board to stay safe and legal while out on the water? We're going to answer that for you right now. Everybody, this is Drew at Regulator Marine, and we're here at St. John's Marina in Charleston, South Carolina, being joined with Matt Perkinson from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. And Matt's here today to talk to us about some of the gear that you need to have on board to stay safe and legal. One of the main core values we have at Regulator is safety, and this is intended to help you stay safe on the water. So Matt, thank you very much for joining us. Can you talk to us about some of the items that we need to have on board?
Yeah, so some of the required items, Coast Guard required items, are to have a PFD, Coast Guard approved PFD, either type 1, 2, 3, or 5 for every member aboard the vessel. It's probably a good idea to just have some extras, stow them in, so whether you've got 2 people on the boat or 8 people on the boat, you've got enough of these on board. If you're in a boat that is 16 feet or larger, you're also going to need one of these type 4 throwable devices, Coast Guard approved. So beyond your PFDs, if you are on a boat that has a built-in gas tank, you're also going to need a fire extinguisher. Very important to make sure that your fire extinguisher, that you look here, that the needle is pointing to the green. These last for a certain amount of time, and they will slowly discharge.
And it's also real important when you are leaving this in the boat, you want to make sure you have this somewhere really accessible. No point in having a fire extinguisher if you can't get it quickly into an emergency. So mounting this in a very easy access area is going to help you keep safe also.
Yeah. If you're in a boat up to 26 feet, you need 1 fire extinguisher. 26 to 40 feet, you're going to need 2 fire extinguishers. 40 feet and over, you need 3 or more fire extinguishers. Another thing that you're going to need is some sort of sound producing device. So you can have something like one of these signal horns. A whistle works for that. If your boat has a built-in horn, that'll work as well. But you need some way to alert folks if you're in distress.
Yeah, and most regulators are coming with horns, of course, standard, but it's always great to have a backup sound producing device in case there's any sort of battery failure or mechanical failure on the boat. What about if you're going offshore?
Well, so in coastal waters, one thing that you do need is a ability to signal to folks. You need some sort of flares, not necessarily the flare gun. You can have the handheld flares, or you can have the gun. But in coastal waters, you do need to have flares on your boat. You need to make sure that they are not expired. They're only legal if they're within that expiration time.
All right, so those are the main items that you have to have on board to stay legal. Now, if you're going to be close to the coastal waters or have any intention of going offshore during the day, there's always a couple of extra items that are highly recommended that you have. First one is first aid kit. Matt was great to bring this along and show us that. That's obvious reasons on why you want to bring a first aid kit. But you have a couple other items here, Matt. What else you got?
I do. So if you're planning to go further offshore, you really kind of have to plan things out. You need to have a little bit of extra safety gear. People spend a lot of money on their boats. They spend a lot of money on gas. When you're running offshore, that's not really a time to skimp on safety gear. And so one of the things that we always recommend, if you're going to run offshore, consider getting yourself an EPerb. This is a device. You're going to register this with NOAA, with specific to your vessel. If you pull this over and you press the button, Coast Guard's coming to rescue you. And this has got a lot of power. This has saved a lot of lives offshore. If you had a distress situation where your boat was to go down. Along with that, we also have sort of a smaller version of that, not quite as powerful, but also wearable. This is a personal locator beacon, and these are able to be placed on each member of your crew. If you were to be knocked out of the boat, or the boat, God forbid, goes down, you're able to also signal with this and have help come on the way. Along with those, we like to keep these in what we call a ditch bag. So it's got some flotation here, very bright colored. You're able to store some of your safety items in here. Also, if you're going offshore for any distance, a good idea to keep extra water in here, extra food. So if you found yourself in a rescue situation, you have some of those essentials that'll keep you alive while search and rescue is out there looking.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you, Matt. So when it comes to an emergency situation, when you are offshore, example, is there any kind of rule of thumb as far as order of operations on how you want to situate yourself? I mean, are you thinking about contacting someone first? Are you thinking about making sure everybody has their life jackets on first? Can you kind of speak a little bit to as sort of the order of operations one should follow in an emergency situation?
Yeah, you know, if you're seeing that you're in rough seas, or you're concerned about the integrity of your boat, it's a good idea. You know, it's not a bad idea to always be wearing your life jacket, but also if you find yourself in one of those situations, it's a good idea to have everybody go ahead and put those life jackets on. If you do have this EPerb around and it's not an auto deploy, have it close by. If you see that for some reason you think your boat is going to sink, you need to go ahead and hit this button and send that message out as soon as possible.
So don't wait until the boat's going down to get help.
Yeah, go ahead and send that message out so that you can have rescue coming to you sooner rather than later. Another thing to do is, if possible, stay with the boat. Even an overturned boat a lot of times will have trapped air and it'll float for a long time. So if you're able to stay close to that boat, that's going to give you a better chance in an emergency situation.
All right, and lastly, as we're up here in the bow too, one of the real important things you got to have on board, whether you're inshore or offshore, is an anchor. Now, Matt, when you're offshore, what are some of the requirements, or what does the Coast Guard recommend as far as length of rope and rode that you have on the anchor?
Yeah, so if you want that anchor to hold, it's good to have a section of chain. Typically, if you're in the 25 feet or under depth, you're going to look at maybe 6 feet of chain or so. If you're out in 50, 75 feet or more, you want to double that or triple that amount of chain. As far as the scope of rope there, typically you're looking at somewhere a bare minimum of 5 times the amount of rope as the depth that you might find yourself in, and that's a bare minimum. A lot of recommendations look at more like 7 to 8 times. So if you're going to be out there in 100 feet of water, and a storm comes along, your boat's disabled, you need to be stop in one place, you're looking at 700-800 feet of rope to be safe out there.
Wow, that's a lot of rope. So
Yeah.
a good rule of thumb to have between 5 to 7 times the depth of water that you're in.
That's right.
All right, Matt, we're back here at the helm. Can you point out a couple of the other items too that you need to stay legal?
Yeah, so one thing a lot of people don't realize, this is a change that's come about in Coast Guard regulations over the last couple of years. If you are underway and on plane, you're required to wear your kill switch. You need to have that attached to you. You're not required to wear it when you're not on plane, but anytime you're on plane, you're required to wear that. With the idea being, if you're thrown out of that boat, it's going to pull that kill switch out. It's going to stop your motor. It's going to keep your boat from continuing to go and hurting you or somebody else if you're thrown into the water. Another thing, if you were boating anytime after official sundown until sunrise, you're required to have your nav lights on. That's a requirement anytime from official sundown to sunrise. And then the last thing that you need to have is your registration paperwork. Can I see yours, please?
You got it, man. Keep mine right here at the helm at all times. You want to make sure you got that accessible for the authorities if they ask for it. Kill switch, and make sure you're running those nav lights from sundown to sunrise. All right, Matt, thanks again for all the information. And as we're wrapping up, are there any other items that you would highly recommend having when going offshore?
Yeah, I would consider a VHF radio to be absolutely essential. In fact, if you're somebody who's running offshore, like to have a more powerful mounted VHF radio like this with an antenna, but also a handheld that maybe you keep in that ditch bag that we talked about. Another item would be a compass. It's very easy to rely on our GPS. They're fantastic, but if you were to lose that GPS and you're underway, you're 50 miles offshore, it's really good to know what was your heading going out, what heading do I need to have coming back in so that I can get back to shore and somewhere close to that inlet that I left out of.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, we highly recommend that everybody take a boater safety course at least once. It's a fantastic operation. Even if you've been operating a boat for years, there are always new information that's being updated, new technologies to stay in the loop. Matt, thank you so much for all the information and to help people stay educated and safe out there. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Everybody at home, thanks for watching. Stay safe on the water.